Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name's Kaylee and these are my books. Today's video is always one of my favorites and it is my February TBR game. So this is where I play my TBR game called TBRLAND, which is a TBR game based off of Candyland, and see what books get chosen for me. Since February is a shorter month, fingers crossed the board is nice to me this month. I don't want to feel overwhelmed this month. I would really love to have a very short TBR. That way I have lots of wiggle room to do some cooler themed reading vlogs. That is one thing that I have been struggling a little bit with the TBR game plus trying to do reading vlogs, because if I can't fit the books I want to read for my reading vlogs into the TBR game, it's sometimes difficult for which I should prioritize, finishing the books from the TBR game or finishing books for cool reading vlogs. So I'm really just hoping for the board to be nice to me this month. That way I can do both, finish the TBR game books and do some cool reading vlogs for you all in February. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and cut to me pulling the first card. Hello, first card pull. Double green, good movement for the beginning. So we're skipping past horror, which unfortunately skips us past the alien bridge. And we're moving into a favorite author for thriller or horror book. All right, first card started off strong with choosing a favorite author for thriller or horror books. And I definitely am going for the horror option in this category because in February, I'm co-hosting 72 Hours in the Haunted House. And that is a readathon where we spin wheels, get assigned subgenres, and have to read horror or thriller books depending on which wheel we spun. I'll have that announcement video linked in the description box below. But basically, I want to read a lot of horror books in February, so I went with a favorite horror author, and that's my girl, Darcy Coates. I love Darcy Coates, and I recently hauled The Fullcroft Ghosts. This is in a book haul video that I just posted. It should be the video right before this one. I'll have it linked below just in case you're curious about it. But spoiler alert, here's one of the books I bought for it. And this is going to be really good for that 72-hour readathon if the wheel is nice to me when I spin it, and if it gives me a trope or subgenre that can fit for this book, because this book is slightly less than 200 pages, so nice and short. But this is a horror book where it follows two kids who their mom unfortunately gets put in the hospital, so they have to go and stay with their grandparents. But their grandparents live in a really creepy old mansion, and it seems like it might be haunted. But then the grandparents start acting really weird, so it's got some like creepy old people vibes. And basically it's about these kids uncovering a long forgotten family secret. Sounds super cool. I'm excited to give it a go. All right, second card pull. Another double green. Oh my goodness. The other one's right here. I promise I didn't just pull the same card. We just got another double green. So we're moving past the novella and into the fantasy and sci-fi section, and we landed on an epic fantasy. All right, next, we're already out of the thriller and horror genre. We've got lots of movement in that section, and we're in the sci-fi and fantasy section where I landed on an epic fantasy. And for this, I am choosing Dead House Gates, which is book 2 in the Malazan series. I'm currently a part of a Malazan read-along, and we're going to have our live show for book 2 somewhere in the middle of February. So I need to read this book, Dead House Gates, in the first 2 weeks of February for sure. So I should be starting it very, very soon. I am nervous for it. So Malazan is a really, really iconic, really well-loved fantasy series, and it just fits so well with the epic fantasy plot, because I can't think of a more epic fantasy series than Malazan. I gave the first book 3.5 stars, which is why I'm a little bit nervous for Dead House Gates, because I really, really want to live this series like everyone else does. And so I'm hoping Dead House Gates is a winner for me. I've heard a lot of people say this is one of their favorites in the series, so I'm excited for it. I'm also just a little nervous for it. And I'm not going to give you a synopsis for Dead House Gates because it is book 2 in the series, but book 1 is your classic epic fantasy series that focuses on an empire trying to expand. But then it seems like there are some monsters that are invading the empire that possibly the humans need to come together to fight. And then also there's lots of gods that are trying to use the humans like their little puppets throughout the story, and so it's also a book about the battle between human free will and the gods' divine rights over humans. Very, very epic, lots of cool characters. And I would say this is a fantasy series that's very much centered on the world, like it's world focused, because you hear a lot about character focused fantasy, plot focused fantasy. I think, at least my understanding for book one, it seems like this is a world focused fantasy, which is why it's a little bit tough to get into, because it really just throws a lot of information at you. And there will sometimes be like one line from 300 pages ago that the author expects you to remember in the future, and if you don't remember it, the plot doesn't hit as hard in that moment. But, you know, I gave it 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it. I'm just hoping to enjoy Dead House Gates more than I enjoyed the first one. All right, moving into our third card pull. 1 blue, so we're only moving 1 spot into a sci-fi. So any sci-fi book. All right, next up we only moved 1 square, but we landed on sci-fi, so that's fine. I'm always happy to include a sci-fi book in my TBR, and for this I'm actually including this collection because I never got to the last novella in this collection, Evershore, because I was waiting until I read Cytonic, which is book 3 in Brandon Sanderson's Skyward series, and this is a collection of novellas from the Skyward series, and Evershore takes place at the same time as Cytonic, so I chose to read Cytonic first, but now that I read Cytonic, I can go back and finish off this collection and read Evershore. I'm so excited because these novellas have been fantastic. I've been loving them so much, so I'm super excited for this. I'm not going to give you a plot synopsis for Evershore because, you know, it's fairly far along in the series, but this is Brandon Sanderson's YA science fiction series. The first book in it is called Skyward, and we follow Spensa, who really wants to be a pilot, but her father was branded a coward, and that's one of the worst things you can be in this society. So she is basically a societal outcast, having to fight her way amongst the ranks to make it up to be a pilot, because being a pilot is the best thing that you can be in this society, because this is on an alien planet where aliens are constantly trying to invade them, and they need pilots to go up and defend their human civilization. All right, now our 4th card pull. 1 green, so we're still in the fantasy and science fiction area, and we just got a physical book. All right, next up landed on physical book in the fantasy or science fiction section, so I am going with The Light of All That Falls. This is quite the chunker, but it is book 3 in the Lacania series, and you can see behind me there is books 1 and books 2 there. This is the current trilogy that Backlist Book Club is reading, and I am a co-host for this trilogy. And we are having the live show for this book sometime in the beginning of March, so I really need to make sure to read this book in February. This is another adult epic fantasy series, and because it's book 3, I can't give you a synopsis of this 3rd book, but I'm pretty excited for it because I gave book 1 4.5 stars, and I gave book 2 3.5 stars, but I'm hopeful that book 3 will pull everything back together and get a higher rating like book 1 did. So a little plot synopsis for book 1. It really feels like a classic fantasy series where we follow these 3 young kids who have escaped from a horrible disaster at their school. They basically get sent on a quest to deliver this special box somewhere, and along the way there's lots of magical forces happening. This is a world where there are people that can use magic, which is called essence, and some people cannot, and the people that cannot are very wary of the essence users because a while ago they used to be like magic police that would beat up people that can't use essence, and so then the regular people made this whole government that restricts the use of essence. So basically there's a lot of prejudice on either side in this society. But this is a book series that's going to leave you confused at times, but intentionally confused, where it seems like there's some weird fate stuff going on. There's some weird forces that are in control that we don't really know about. There's some possible gods happening, some possible timey-wimey stuff happening. It's really cool. I'm very intrigued by this series. I've been enjoying it, so I'm excited to finish this series and see if by the end of this book I count this epic fantasy series one of my favorites or not. I'm gonna move the board down a little bit so you can see better, hopefully. But now we're moving into our 5th card pull, 1 blue, which excitingly does take us on the love bridge. So we do land on ebook, so we have to choose a fantasy or science fiction ebook. But then when we do our next card pull, we can go across the bridge. All right, next I landed on ebook in the fantasy and science fiction section, so I am choosing A Shade of Madness. Should be up on the screen somewhere here. I don't have the physical copy, obviously, because I'm going to be reading it through ebook, but it is book 2 to A Touch of Light, which I read this book in January and loved it so much. I gave it 5 stars. Obsessed. So I need to make sure to read book 2 ASAP. Hence, I'm putting book 2, A Shade of Madness, on my February TBR. This is likely going to be, not this book, but A Shade of Madness is likely going to be one of the first books I read in February because I'm so excited for it. Again, can't give you the synopsis for A Shade of Madness, but A Touch of Light is another adult epic fantasy book that follows this world where part of the world worships death and part of the world worships life. And the part that worships life, their rulers are like immortal, like they live for hundreds of years. But the part of the world that worships death thinks that these people are like monsters. They should be taken down. And so we have the political tension between these different countries. But then it seems like there's also this plague overtaking people and causing this plague of madness. And so we might be needing heroes from both the people that worship light and the people that worship death to come together and fight this magical plague. And like I said, I loved this first book so much, A Touch of Light. And I've only been hearing amazing things about book 2, A Shade of Madness, like even better things than I heard about A Touch of Light. So I literally cannot wait. A Shade of Madness is the #1 book that I'm excited for on this TBR so far. All right, now moving into our 6th card pool, and this could be the last because once we go across this love bridge, we only have these 2 possible spots to land on in the romance section. Otherwise, we could just land directly on our last final spot and finish the game for the month. So let's see what we get. 1 purple. So that means we do move past the green and the blue spot and into the rainbow mood read spot, which is finishing the game. Only 6 card pulls this month. I think that's a new record for nice board. But unfortunately, this is not going to be a mood read, and I'll explain why in the next clip. All right, and then in a surprise twist of events, our game is already done. This is the quickest game I think I've ever had on my channel, which I'm excited about because I was actually really wanting a small TBR this month. So like the universe listened to me, thank you. And like I mentioned in the clip of me playing the game, I landed on the mood read, which is my last space on the board, hence me winning the game for the month. But a mood read is only a mood read if I finished my last TBR. And because I don't know yet if I finished my January TBR, because I am filming this in the month of January, it's going back 1 month before January, so it is dependent on me finishing my December TBR. And I hate to say it, everyone, but I did not finish my December TBR. So the mood read prize has been stripped away from me. And instead of being granted a graceful mood read, I have been doomed with the random generator of book reads. So basically, I have a whole shelf behind the camera that's full of my unread books. And so I put each shelf in as a number in a random generator. It chooses a shelf, and then I count all the books on that shelf, put that number in a random generator, and it chooses a book. So the book that it randomly chose for me this month is A Ruin of Kings. I am not happy about this. I'm in the middle of so many fantasy series right now. I did not want to start a new one. I guess it's not the worst thing in the world because this book is on my TBR, The Light of All That Falls, so I am finishing up a series. So I guess starting a series isn't terrible, but like if I was going to start a series, I wanted it to be the Wheel of Time series because Cassidy and Mel, along with some other cool booktubers, are doing a Wheel of Time read-along, and I want to participate in that. But how am I going to participate in that if I'm starting a new series already? But, you know, the random generator has spoken, and I guess I will be reading this book in February. I mean, it's nothing against the book itself. I am excited for this book. I've heard great things about this book, but I just didn't want to read it in February. This is an adult epic fantasy series, first in a series. Lots of adult epic fantasy on my TBR this month, which maybe isn't the greatest since February I wanted it to be the month of horror, and there's only 1 horror book on my TBR, but whatever. From my understanding of this book, this is a book about a thief who finds out he's a long-lost prince and gets thrown into this political world full of things he does not understand, such as dragons, demons, gods, prophecies, true love, and heroes, and all sorts of fun things like that. But it seems like this is not the story following a hero because our main character is destined to destroy the world. It sounds really, really cool. I've heard fantastic things about the series from some of my friends on booktube. So again, I am excited to read this book. I just don't want to start another fantasy series without finishing some first. But that concludes my TBR. Like I said, lots of epic fantasy on my TBR this month. Lots of chunky books on my TBR this month. So even though it is only 6 books, I mean, let me grab them all for you. They are quite chunky, and this doesn't even include 2 of the books. Wait, 6 books, but I'm holding 5. Oh, this book is not on my TBR. That was confusing. Okay, here are the books, but I'm not even including 2 of them because in addition to this, there's Dead House Gates, book 2 in the Malazan series, and Shade of Madness, book 2 in the Ashes of Aberon series. So, you know, it's pretty chunky for only being 6 books. Oh, I'm also cheating. I'm being dramatic. This is not, I'm not reading this whole thing. I'm reading the novella in it. Okay, Kaylee, calm down. You're reading the novella, not the whole thing. I don't know, maybe this TBR is fine. I just felt like being dramatic, apparently. But let me know down in the comments what's on your February TBR. I'm pretty excited for the books that I have on there. Like I said, I'm the most excited for A Shade of Madness though. And if you enjoyed this video, please like the video and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time. Bye!